Now it's my pleasure to introduce Pierre Langlais, journalist for French magazine Télérama, here to interview one of the true trailblazers and creative visionaries in the television business, the man responsible for the X-Files, Mr. Chris Carter. Where is he? Wow. So nice. Over to you.
Thanks again for being here. We're going to have a chat together and then some questions from the room. So get prepared if you have some to ask. Let's start with a detail. The opening credits. Were they the one we just saw? Are they like old ones you put to wait for the new ones, or are they the ones that people will see in January?
We thought about doing some changes to the original credits, but then it seemed like sacrilege that those credits were on 202 episodes. They belonged on these next 6.
So here we are. The X-Files are back. They are about to be back on television. 13 years ago, when the last episode of season 9 aired, did you already had in mind that one day you would see it here or maybe somewhere else introducing a new season, a new X-Files? Was that in your mind somewhere?
I never imagined that I'd be sitting here in Cannes introducing more television X-Files. It's surreal. It's really a dream come true for me to do something. I've been doing this now for roughly or a little over a third of my life. So it's obviously something that is very important to me, and I jumped at the chance to do it.
So all these years, where were these characters? In your head, in your heart? I mean, for us, there's been a movie in between, but they were somewhere in television history. They were on the DVD. But for you, were they still alive? Did they grow inside of you?
Every day I pick up the newspaper and I see a possible X-Files episode. So this is obviously something that I did it for a long time, and you never quite lose the eye for what would be good X-Files storytelling. That said, I think now is a perfect time to come back with the X-Files, considering global politics, things that you saw in this episode, we are going to touch on as we go forward.
Of course, we'll go back to that today. But the characters themselves, apart from the stories, that was also my questions. Did you have them haunting you somewhere? Because this is a work of a lifetime. Were they still pushing inside to come back, and you felt like the need to have them alive again for good?
Yes, I always describe myself as equal parts of Mulder and Scully. I've always said that this is a search. This is a story about, a long story about faith. And it's about my faith as well, my faith in science. And believe it or not, I'm a skeptic. So I've never been visited by aliens, believe it or not. So for me, it's a story about the modern pursuit of science and scientists, first and foremost. I always thought this is really Scully's show. It's Gillian Anderson's show. If it weren't for the science, this would be just another show about the paranormal.
So the story and the characters evolved all the way, all these 13 years. So what we just saw and what we will see more in 2016 is the consequence of 13 years of reflection for you?
Yes, we're going to be honest to the passage of time. So if we were on 13 years ago and we're on now, we're going to play that 13 years have passed. I think that's the honest thing to do. We're not going to pretend that the characters are younger than they are, even though I think they look fantastic. I hope you agree. So we're playing them in real time, and we're playing, obviously, their relationship. When we last saw them, they were together in the second movie. They are now split up, but as you see, there are reasons to reunite.
Well, actually, what were the first ideas you had in your mind when you wrote this, when you worked on these episodes? Was it this relationship that was driving, or the mythology, which is obviously, as we just saw, very important still?
It's the relationship. The reason the show, I think, is popular and has been successful these many years is really David and Gillian and the characters of Mulder and Scully. And I think if not for them, the anchor wouldn't be there. That's not to say we've told, I think, good stories along the way, but without those two characters and their involvement, I think you would have had less of a show.
So without spoiling anything, what about them? How do you feel they are now that they're back? What are the main evolutions that you think they went through?
So, as I was saying, last time we saw them, they were together, living in the same house under the same roof. Clearly, they're not there anymore. They're far from it, and there's been a lot that has gone on, and we hope to explore that going forward.
But I meant also deep inside them. Obviously, they are the same, but they've changed. How would you say time has marked their feelings?
I think that they've both have been on a personal quest. Scully is still a scientist through and through, so her heart lies in reason and in logic, and Mulder's heart lies in the truth, and the answers lie beyond the pale, beyond the realm of what is accepted science.
So is it a new season or a mini-series? When we introduced the evening, it was said it's the brand new X-Files. Is it really the brand new X-Files? It is still the good old X-Files? Where do you stand?
Yeah, it's, people were calling it season 10. You could call it that, but it's a very brief season 10, even though it took us a long time to make this show. It took a long time to get going. There was a chance we were going to make 7 episodes, so there were lots of questions unanswered, but we are still finishing the show as we speak. In fact, there are some special effects in this, what you saw tonight. You're seeing, I just finished filming a month ago, so this is brand new. You guys are the first to see it.
There are some shows, some of them Heroes, Prison Break, Twin Peaks, even Full House. Some shows have found or will find their way back on television soon. Are we living in an age of never-ending TV series and never-ending stories, meaning that you can bring these guys back and back and back, and that's the television where we live in now?
Mulder and Scully will be in wheelchairs before they are rolled off stage.
In 13 years, the world, as you started to say earlier, have changed. The threats have changed. The vision that we have on geopolitical questions have changed. Communications, internet, a lot of things. How do you adapt to that? Or do you have to somehow rethink your story because of these 13 years?
Yes, I mean, Mulder and Scully used to walk around with giant cell phones. They now have the internet, and they didn't have that in the beginning. So much has changed. We're trying to be honest to the changes, dealing with digital technology, with the capability of spying. Clearly, we're being spied on, at least in the US, or maybe spying on you. And there seems to be no shame in it.
So I guess the conspiracy itself had to be adapted to all these, right?
Yes, this was the fun part, was coming back and being able to explore the conspiracy in a brand new way.
Can you tell me more without having to kill me afterward?
No, I can't tell you more without having to kill you.
Is there still lying behind all your stories? A comment on America, the original series. They were traveling, they were visiting small towns, they were visiting all kind of details of the American society. Do you try to do that still? Of course, this is only 6 episodes so far.
Right. So every episode in this 6 takes place in the U.S., but the FBI goes many places now. It has a worldwide job and mission, and I was very lucky to go with the FBI to the Olympics in Athens right after we finished. So I was one of the first people to accompany them outside of our borders.
Something else has changed in the past 13 years. It's television itself. The X-Files in the 90s were ahead of their time. Now, if you would do exactly as they were in the 90s, they might look old-fashioned. We've seen a lot of stuff happening on television. Have you keep an eye on what happened, and did you try to adapt so your show would be modern also, regarding the television standards now?
I think the show is true to its time, so it's as modern as the time it's being filmed in. It's certainly being filmed with the modern technology. Our stories are contemporary stories happening now, some of them ripped from the headlines. I think the show has kept pace with time.
Nowadays, we see even series, as we say, a lot of anthologies, shorter seasons. You exactly fit on what television, American television at least, likes. How did that influence the way you worked? I guess you don't work on 6 episodes like you did with long seasons before.
So it was very nice to come back and just do 6 episodes. It was a lot of work. It took 8 months of my life. And I think that it's for the future of X-Files, if we are to come back, I think you'll see that we come back in these miniseries, if you will, special events.
But does it mean a change of pace? I mean, for the viewers, of course, less episodes, but something different?
We used to tell a story over a long saga over 22 or to 25 episodes. Now we've told our arc is much sharper from 1 to 6. So I think we pack a lot more into these 6 episodes.
Is that also something that modern television asks? That in the 90s you could be slower, now you have to go faster?
Yeah, I think that modern television asks that you kill off a main character very quickly. And I can tell you that, well, I'm not going to tell you.
What about the shooting? You said that it took 8 months to put together. What was different? What was the challenges for you to put together these 6 episodes?
I started the show when I was in my 30s. I'm older than that now. So it was, a different person making this show this time, and different eyes and different sensibilities. So I think, if anything, the show is a new inspiration and expression for me.
Could you tell us more about these different eyes that you're talking about? Meaning what? What does it mean?
I just look at the world differently now, and I look at work differently now. So this is all boring stuff to you, but there is an approach that you take the older I get that is a different approach.
Please tell us a bit more about the actors, because obviously you needed them back. I guess you needed them back. So how did it happen, and what did it? I think I read somewhere that they were quite happy that it was also only 6 episodes.
The actors were very happy to come back, but I'll just say, and I must say, that the exciting thing for me was beyond David and Gillian, who wanted to do it. They came to me, really. We had a breakfast one morning, and we talked about doing this. But who came back, most importantly, I think, for the show, beyond the actors, is the original writers of the show, Glenn Morgan and James Wong and Darren Morgan, 3 people who wrote some of the best X-Files ever. So without their involvement this time, it would have been a different experience, and so I'm very thankful to them. I'm actually thankful for someone else in the audience here tonight. I'm going to embarrass him by telling him this, but this a person who's worked with me for almost 15 years, Gabe Rotter. He's the co-producer of the show.
Is that something you needed to have your crew with you, to be reassured, I mean, you needed to work with the same people?
This is the thing, too. This is when I talked about doing my job in a different way. I love working with friends, and so I've developed many friends over the years, and it was wonderful for me. Very emotional. We had the first production meeting. I was very emotional because it was gathering, in many cases, a lot of people back together. Some people who had worked on the original pilot. It's a very satisfying thing, and there's a kind of continuity that it creates in life that was wonderful.
And the actors also, I mean, I remember meeting Gillian Anderson a few years ago, and she was, nobody ever gave up on the X-Files being alive. It seems that it was always, sometimes you have actors saying, you know, well, this is the past, that was great, but everybody was always, even the writers, wanted to come back. How do you explain that they were so eager to continue?
I think that the writers probably did the same thing that I did, was pick up the paper every day and see there are stories to tell. And there are two fantastic actors to tell these stories with. And so I think that opportunity is a very simple recipe.
The public is somehow, I guess, more educated right now with long arch stories that they were back in the 90s. Does it mean that you have to give up on the monsters of the week and do a 6-hour story, or you still want to save what was, of course, part of the pleasure?
I'm glad you asked that question because it shows that you know the show. So the show was originally mythology episodes that were scattered among the standalone Monster of the Week episodes. And I can tell you that we do, in this 6-episode arc, we do a combination of those two things. We begin with a mythology episode, we end with a mythology episode, and the 4 episodes in the middle are standalone episodes, including Monster of the Week episodes.
So you have, but I guess you have time to close something, right, in between. Yes. A word, of course we spoke about Mulder and Scully, but a word on the new character, of at least one of the new characters you bring, Chad O'Malley. What about this guy, and what made you go through Joel McHale to play him? Because we know Community, we know the comical side of the guy. What drove you to this actor, and what about this character? Because he Mulder looks like a really quiet guy at first.
I'm interested in, there's right now on the internet, there are 500 conspiracy sites, and there are people like Tad O'Malley out there who have got the public's attention, and I'm interested in these people. So Tad O'Malley is, for me, a sort of a character who is a combination of many of these personalities that I see who are talking about, they're alternative media folk.
And what about the choice of Joel McHale?
Joel McHale came to my attention when I saw that he had hosted not a Hollywood Foreign Press, the Washington Press Association dinner, and where a comedian gets up and makes fun of Washington and even the president, who was sitting just to his side. And he was very, very funny, and I thought he would be the perfect person for the part.
So we'll see more of his comedic side later.
He's a terrific actor, so he's playing something different.
I got one last question before we end the mic to the room for more questions. Well, you said earlier that Mulder and Scully will be in wheelchairs before you end the show. So this is the beginning of something bigger. This is the beginning of what? This is the beginning of 11th, 12th, 13th season? Or you feel like you'll take breaks between seasons and that would be even television as we called it earlier?
I don't know.
What do you wish for?
Honestly, I mean, I love telling X-Files stories. So I think the truth is out there. We'll see, if we do well, if we satisfy audience expectations, I think that certainly there's an opportunity.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
So I'm sure you guys have a lot of questions. So there are mics going around. So if you have a question, please raise your hand, and I'll pass by. I see someone here. Yeah, please, sir.
Chris, it's a more complicated world. I'm Anil Banwari from India. So are we going to have the complexities come in even more in X-Files?
I think you're speaking of the mythology. And yes, the complexities will, if you liked the mythology before, you will like the mythology as it continues. I hope that you will.
Thank you.
And the second, I felt from the screening tonight that the tone was closer, like in the first season, because after like the loners were more like, you know, creative and more fantasy, more humor, like season 5 and 6. And I'm glad you told us it's going to be like lunars, like 4 lunars out of the 6. And my question was, these lunars are going to be like darker, like the first seasons, or more creative, like season 5, 6, and later?
It's a combination of all those things. I mentioned that Darren Morgan is coming back, and Darren Morgan wrote, I think, 4 of the most beloved X-Files episodes, the comedy episodes. So you'll see him and something that he's done, and not only wrote it, where he's been celebrated, but he's directed his own. Then you'll see the people who wrote, a show like Home, Morgan and Wong. They are both back working separately now. So I think you're going to see, you're going to get a little bit of everything that you want, and that's our hope, at least.
Sir?
Congratulations on the show. I was going to say, it seemed quite meta at the beginning that you were saying, you know, that the X-Files opened in this year, and then, you know, the Bureau was closed down in 2002, and, you know, obviously it's an allusion to the TV show as well. And, you know, did you want to be quite deliberate with that at the beginning? And also, could you talk a little bit about, it seemed quite explicit in its reference to popular culture in terms of Uber. It felt like the original series wasn't necessarily set so deliberately in a time, but here we had 9/11, Julian Assange, Snowden, Uber taxis, that kind of thing.
So I felt we had to be honest coming back to the time that we were telling these stories, and it was one of the things that excited me is the time that we are in telling these stories now. So yes, we have those references, and if you didn't feel them before, I think that they weren't. We weren't living in a time when there were so many references to make. The digital information and the internet age has changed all of our lives. Will never be the same. So I think that Mulder and Scully have to be living in that age and have to reference it honestly.
Sir?
Hi, sir. So we saw Skinner's back, and a cigarette-smoking man is back. Will there be any other original characters coming back?
I think we're on the internet now. This is, I think, a live feed, or will be a feed. And so I don't want to spoil it for everyone else, but I can tell you that we are going to bring you surprises in these 6 episodes, and that could include other characters.
Thank you.
Sorry, yeah? Here. Okay.
Thank you very much. This may seem a prosaic question. Hi, I'm up here.
Hello.
Chris, hello. But for me, it was very important to the feel of the show, and that is, will you be bringing the Courier font back on screen?
Thank you for mentioning that. We searched around for a font that we kind of like and modernize the show a little bit. So I happen to like that Courier, or I think it was American Typewriter actually. But thank you for noticing.
Okay, thank you.
We have time for one last question. If someone already have a mic or no, sir? Yep.
Hi, congratulations.
Thank you.
My question concerns your writing responsibilities on the show. So when you look back at the old series and the original series and the complexity of the mythology across that show, how much of a duty did you feel as a writer to pay homage to all of that, and how difficult was that for you? And did you have to sit back and say, look, I'm going to put some of that aside just to not overcomplicate this? How did you approach it?
It's hard. I mean, there are that mythology got very complex and very dense in some ways, and so people went with it, which was the amazing thing, is that people followed the mythology, and some people said it was too hard to follow, or maybe too dense. But we had to be honest to it coming back, and I think that we have done that here with what we've done and what we will be doing.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Chris. Thank you. Thank you for coming. Thank you.